From the dust of ages, great empires rise, their shadows stretching across continents, their legacies etched in stone and memory. For a time they seem eternal, invincible. But history teaches us a humbling lesson. Nothing lasts forever. Even the mightiest structures built by humanity will one day crumble. Today, we journey into the heart of twilight to uncover the hidden fractures and fatal flaws that brought 20 of history's greatest empires to their knees. This is the story of how titans fall. Our journey begins with the Titan of Titans, Rome. For centuries, the Roman Empire was the center of the known world, a marvel of engineering, law, and military might. But its vastness became its vulnerability. The empire stretched its resources too thin, struggling to defend thousands of miles of borders. Internally, political corruption and a series of civil wars hollowed it out from within. The economy, burdened by military spending and reliant on slave labor, began to stagnate. It wasn't one single event, but a slow, creeping decay. A death by 1,000 cuts that finally saw the Western Roman Empire fall in 476 AD. But as the West fell, the East endured. The Byzantine Empire, the heir to Rome, flourished for another 1,000 years, a beacon of culture and Christianity. Its capital, Constantinople, was a fortress thought to be impregnable. Yet, endless wars against Persian, Arab, and Turkic rivals gradually drained its strength and treasure. The Fourth Crusade in 1204, a betrayal by fellow Christians, shattered the empire, leaving it a shadow of its former self. Finally, in 1453, the cannons of the Ottoman Sultan Mehmed II breached the legendary walls of Constantinople, extinguishing the last flame of Rome. Across the Atlantic, a world away, another great civilization met a swift and brutal end. The Aztec Empire, with its magnificent city of Tenochtitlan floating on a lake, dominated Mesoamerica. But in 1519, the arrival of Spanish conquistadors led by Hernán Cortés changed everything. The Spanish brought with them not only steel swords and cannons, but also a silent, invisible killer: smallpox. The disease tore through the native population, who had no immunity, decimating their numbers and shattering their social fabric. Weakened by pestilence and internal resentments from subjugated peoples, the Aztec Empire fell to a handful of invaders. Further south, nestled in the Andes Mountains, the vast Inca Empire faced its own internal crisis just before the Spanish arrived. A brutal civil war for the throne had erupted between two brothers, Atahualpa and Huáscar. The conflict ravaged the empire, leaving it deeply divided and exhausted. So when Francisco Pizarro's small force of conquistadors arrived, they stepped into a fractured world. They skillfully exploited these divisions, captured Atahualpa, and decapitated the empire's leadership, causing the largest empire in the Americas to unravel with shocking speed. From the steppes of Asia arose the largest contiguous land empire in history, the Mongol Empire. Under the unifying genius of Genghis Khan, nomadic tribes were forged into an unstoppable military force that conquered from the Pacific Ocean to the heart of Europe. But the very thing that made it strong, a single charismatic leader, also sowed the seeds of its demise. After Genghis Khan's death, the empire was divided among his sons and grandsons. These successor states, or khanates, soon began fighting among themselves, losing their unified purpose. The Mongol Empire didn't fall to an external enemy. It simply fractured into pieces, its vastness too great to be held together. Before the Mongols, another empire had dominated the ancient world: Persia. The Achaemenid Empire was a model of administration and tolerance, connecting diverse cultures under a single rule. But it met its match in one of history's greatest military minds, Alexander the Great. In a series of brilliant campaigns, Alexander's smaller, more agile Macedonian army repeatedly outmaneuvered the massive Persian forces. His innovative tactics and strategic genius broke the back of Persian power, and with the death of King Darius III, the great empire was absorbed into Alexander's own short-lived Hellenistic domain. Centuries later, the Ottoman Empire rose to become the dominant power in the Mediterranean and the Middle East, a true successor to both the Byzantine and Arab caliphates. For over 600 years, it was a major center of science, art, and commerce. However, by the 19th century, it was known as the sick man of Europe. The slow fire of nationalism began to burn within its diverse territories, as Greeks, Serbs, and Arabs sought independence. The final blow came with its disastrous decision to enter World War I. Defeat led to the empire's dismemberment by the victorious Allied powers, and in 1922, the last sultan was deposed, giving way to the modern Republic of Turkey. In the Far East, China's last imperial dynasty, the Qing, faced a storm from both without and within. The 19th century brought aggressive Western imperialism, forcing the empire into unequal treaties and the humiliating Opium Wars. Internally, corruption and social unrest exploded into massive conflicts like the Taiping Rebellion, one of the bloodiest civil wars in human history. Battered by foreign powers and consumed by internal decay, the ancient imperial system could no longer hold. The 1911 revolution brought an end to 2,000 years of dynastic rule in China. Deep in the jungles of Central America, the brilliant Maya civilization flourished for centuries, renowned for its advanced mathematics, astronomy, and monumental architecture. Yet, by 900 AD, its great stone cities were mysteriously abandoned to the jungle. Evidence now points to a catastrophic environmental collapse. A series of prolonged, severe droughts, likely exacerbated by deforestation from intensive agriculture, led to crop failure and water shortages. The ecological foundation of their society crumbled, forcing the Maya to abandon the heartland that had sustained them for millennia. A similar fate befell the Khmer Empire of Southeast Asia, whose magnificent temple complex of Angkor Wat still stands as a testament to its former glory. This empire thrived on a sophisticated system of water management, with vast reservoirs and canals supporting its rice agriculture. But shifts in climate patterns brought both intense monsoons and devastating droughts, overwhelming their intricate system. At the same time, the rise of maritime trade routes bypassed their inland kingdom, starving it of wealth and influence. The combination of environmental instability and economic decline led to Angkor's eventual abandonment. The Assyrian Empire of Mesopotamia was one of the most feared military powers of the ancient world, known for its brutal efficiency and siege warfare. It forged a vast empire through sheer force, but its policy of ruling through terror and mass deportations bred deep resentment among its conquered peoples. The empire became overextended, its armies constantly marching to put down rebellions. A coalition of its enemies, the Babylonians and the Medes, finally united to strike at its heart. In 612 BC, the capital, Nineveh, was sacked and burned, and the once mighty Assyrian Empire was wiped from the map. Even the legendary civilization of ancient Egypt experienced its own period of collapse. The New Kingdom was an era of immense wealth and power, the age of pharaohs like Tutankhamun and Ramesses the Great. However, towards its end, the kingdom was plagued by systemic corruption, with rampant tomb robbing and a breakdown in central authority. Weakened from within, Egypt became vulnerable to a series of invasions by foreign powers, including the mysterious Sea Peoples, Libyans, and Nubians. The once unshakable land of the pharaohs entered a long period of decline and foreign domination, the empire on which the sun never sets. The British Empire was the largest in history, its influence shaping the modern world through language, law, and trade. But maintaining global dominance came at an immense cost. The two world wars, though ending in victory, left Britain economically exhausted. Simultaneously, a rising tide of nationalism swept through its colonies from India to Africa. The moral and financial will to maintain the empire evaporated, leading to a largely peaceful but rapid process of decolonization in the decades after World War II. The Spanish Empire, the first truly global empire, was fueled by unimaginable riches. Silver mined from the mountains of Peru and Mexico poured into Spain, making it the wealthiest nation in Europe. But this flood of wealth was a poisoned chalice. It caused rampant inflation that crippled the Spanish economy, making its domestic goods uncompetitive. Endless European wars drained the treasury, and the empire, over-reliant on colonial resources, failed to develop a sustainable economic base. As its military power waned, it lost its vast American territories one by one. In the 20th century, a new kind of empire emerged: the Soviet Union. A superpower built on a political ideology, it challenged the United States for global supremacy during the Cold War. Yet its command economy was fundamentally flawed, unable to innovate or meet the needs of its people, leading to shortages and stagnation. Decades of political repression bred deep cynicism, while a costly arms race and a disastrous war in Afghanistan bled it dry. In 1991, without a major war, the Soviet Union simply dissolved, its ideology having failed the test of reality. The French colonial empire at its height was second only to the British. It stretched from the Caribbean to Southeast Asia. But like Britain, France was weakened by the world wars. Its attempts to hold on to its colonies after 1945 led to brutal and costly wars of decolonization, most notably in Vietnam and Algeria. These conflicts drained the French treasury and divided the nation. The dream of a global French Union proved untenable, and France was forced to grant independence to its overseas territories. In West Africa, the Mali Empire was a center of immense wealth, learning, and culture, famous for its ruler Mansa Musa, whose legendary pilgrimage to Mecca displayed his kingdom's staggering gold reserves. The empire's prosperity was built on its control of the trans-Saharan trade routes. But internal succession disputes weakened the central government. As new maritime trade routes opened along the Atlantic coast, the old desert caravans declined in importance, starving Mali of its primary source of income and power, leading to its gradual fragmentation. The Carthaginian Empire, a great maritime power based in modern-day Tunisia, was the arch-rival of the early Roman Republic. Their struggle for control of the Mediterranean resulted in the three epic Punic Wars. After a series of titanic clashes, including Hannibal's legendary invasion of Italy, Rome ultimately prevailed. But Rome's victory was not enough. Driven by a desire for total security, they razed the city of Carthage to the ground in 146 BC, sowing the fields with salt. It was one of history's most complete and brutal destructions of an imperial power. For 1,000 years, the Holy Roman Empire was a dominant feature of Central Europe. Yet it was never a centralized state like France or England. It was a complex patchwork of hundreds of semi-independent principalities, duchies, and cities. The Protestant Reformation shattered its religious unity, leading to devastating conflicts like the 30 Years' War. This internal fragmentation and religious strife fatally weakened the emperor's authority. The empire was finally dissolved in 1806 by Napoleon, a ghost of its former self. Our final story is a microcosm of imperial collapse, played out on a remote speck of land in the Pacific Easter Island. The Polynesian people who settled there created a unique culture, famous for its colossal moai statues. But on a small, isolated island, resources are finite. The inhabitants cleared the forests to transport their statues and build canoes, leading to total deforestation. This triggered soil erosion, the collapse of the ecosystem, and the extinction of native species. Without wood for boats, they were trapped on a barren island, their complex society descending into conflict and starvation, a stark warning of the price of resource exhaustion. From the sands of Egypt to the jungles of the Maya, from the steppes of Mongolia to the shores of Easter Island, the lesson is clear. Empires are not eternal. They fall to internal decay, to overreach, to environmental collapse, and to the relentless march of time. Their ruins stand as solemn reminders of ambition and failure, of glory and loss. By studying their downfall, we learn not only about the past, but also gain wisdom for our own time. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the echoes of history. If you found this exploration fascinating, please consider liking this video and subscribing for more journeys into our shared past.